It can't be manufactured. We can't live without it. And there is a global shortage of this life-saving substance. Today, we're talking about blood and blood donations. This is Vital Signs. I'm Dr. Sanjay Gupta. Now stay with me here. I know the thought of blood makes some people want to pass out. But your blood is remarkable. It delivers oxygen, fights infections, forms clots, carries cells and nutrients throughout the body. Perhaps even more impressive is how it gets there. Your circulatory system is this vast and complex network of vessels. In fact, if you lined up all the blood vessels in your body end to end, they would stretch around the earth 2.5 times. But what happens when something goes wrong? When you're injured or sick, and you need the help of a complete stranger to save your life. At the Winston Churchill School south of London, 60 students fill a classroom, listening to Stuart Phillips. He's a business manager at the school. He doesn't usually give talks to the students. But on this particular subject, Stuart is passionate. He understands what it means to be a match.
I wasn't aware of bone marrow donations before I signed up. It was an article that I read in hospital, when I was in hospital myself. The article that's detailed about being a bone marrow donor and the information that came through said that, you know, if you're a match for someone, you could potentially help them, cure them from cancer, which is like, you know, really exciting thing to be able to sort of have a chance to do.
Oh, good man.
In 1990, Stuart signed up for the Anthony Nolan Register in the United Kingdom. It was the first marrow donor registry in the world. And now it's part of a global network of registries that has just surpassed 25 million potential volunteer donors worldwide.
It's been quite interesting to sort of wonder what it would be like and who you'd be helping. Because there's, you know, it could be anyone from a newborn to someone who's at the end of their life. You know, it's very difficult to know who they have a match for.
Years went by with no word on a potential match. In that time, he got married and had 2 kids. His family also experienced a devastating loss.
Well, we had a situation about 11 years ago where we had a child who wasn't going to be able to survive when born. And I didn't want to accept that there was nothing that could be done.
There was no one to help his baby, but Stuart hoped he could help someone else. He'd have to wait more than 2 decades before he finally got that chance.
If I'm honest, I've forgotten really that I sort of given up all hope I was ever going to get a phone call. So it came a bit out of the blue really, and they said that I was a match, and that if I was willing to go further with this, then it had to happen, like, immediately. Would I still be prepared to do that? And it was like, whoa, this has come from nowhere. But yeah, of course.
Stuart went to London for testing, where they determined he was still a match. In November 2012, he donated his stem cells, a 6-hour process. Stem cells are master cells found in bone marrow that have the potential to become any type of cell in the body. In this case, they can bolster the cells in the immune system. Stuart was donating, but he didn't know who he was donating for.
That was quite a hard time, because I'm not one of these people that can just do something like that and not know what the outcome is.
All they told him was an adult female in America needed it urgently. It turned out that Stuart's match is Celia Hutchinson. In 2000, Celia noticed a lump in her neck. That's when doctors diagnosed her with CLL, chronic lymphocytic leukemia. At the time, she was in her mid-50s.
Well, it scared me because my parents died of cancer. My oldest brother has cancer. And then after I was diagnosed, I had found out my youngest brother had cancer. It was very scary for me. But then I had to, say, hey, it's going to be whatever it's going to be.
I was glad I was able to be there all the time. In 14 years I missed one appointment, and it was because I had pneumonia. But I did drive her in and pick her up. But, you do what you got to do. If you care about someone, you do what you got to do, that's all.
Celia and her husband Walter, affectionately known as Hutch, have 3 kids, 7 grandkids, and 2 great-grandsons. For Celia, her family was the motivation she needed to fight the cancer by whatever means necessary. For 12 years, she endured repeated chemotherapy treatments, but the cancer was forming mutations. Her doctors at Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston recommended a more extreme option, a stem cell transplant.
Because I wanted to live. I wanted life. I mean, I felt that I was just too young not to try it and see what would happen so I could go on and live my life and enjoy my children, my grandchildren, and my great-grandchildren. And I'm just a great believer that if it can be done, you go for it.
In November 2012, the American equivalent of the UK's Anthony Nolan Register, called Be the Match, notified Celia she had a donor. A complete stranger that would turn out to be Stuart, who was going to donate stem cells for her. The transplant operation was a success, though not without complications. Celia pulled through, but like Stuart, she was left wondering about her donor.
We didn't know where he came from or anything. We thought we could at least meet him within the year, but it didn't work that way because it was from the UK.
The privacy laws are different for every country. For those 2 years, Stuart waited anxiously for word on Celia. He only received bits and pieces of information over that time, until one day, a letter came near the end of 2014.
I got a letter out of the blue to say, your recipient wants to make contact with you. Are you happy to share your details? Which we did. And I always wanted to speak to her before Christmas, after the 2 years. And we had about an hour chat on the phone.
Oh, it was just absolutely fantastic. I mean, I just can't even express it. It was just the most exciting thing in my whole life, to know that the donor has saved my life. And there should be so many more out there that does this, that can do what he did, you know? And like I said, he should be so proud of himself for what he had done, because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him.
And I didn't really know what to say, if I'm honest, because I didn't do anything particularly, I don't think, very out of this world. I'm just checking my emails actually, and have an email from Celia that's asked me to update her on how the interview goes today.
Nearly every day since then, Celia and Stuart have been exchanging emails, but the ultimate goal was to meet in person. So Stuart had an idea.
So I think she'll be really shocked, in a nice way, I hope.
He's coming from the UK to surprise Celia. Do you know your blood type? Well, there are actually 8 different types. People with type O, they're considered the universal donors. That's the most requested type of blood in hospitals. Type AB positive, they're going to be the universal for plasma. That's the liquid part of our blood that carries cells and nutrients through our bodies. It's most often used in emergencies for patients requiring massive transfusions. And there are also forms of rare blood. That's the case in Australia, where the man with the golden arm has spent a lifetime of giving to save newborn babies from a blood disease. On the surface, James Harrison is just an average guy. He loves his daughter and grandchildren. He collects stamps, goes for walks near his home on Australia's central coast. But it's what's under the surface that makes James extraordinary.
I got nicknamed the man with the golden arm.
Specifically, it's what's flowing in his veins. James's golden arm, his right arm to be exact, from which he's donated blood nearly every week for the past 60 years.
Well, in 1951, I had a chest operation, which they removed the lung, and so I was 14. So when I came out of the operation, or a couple of days after, my father was explaining what had happened, because it was 11 hours on the table in those days. And he said that I had 13 units of blood and my life had been saved by unknown people. He was a donor himself. And so I said, well, when I'm old enough, I'll become a blood donor.
At that time, you had to be 18 to donate blood in Australia. Not long after James became a donor, doctors called him with an idea. His blood, they said, could be the answer to a baffling problem in Australia.
in Australia, up until about 1967, there were literally thousands of babies dying each year, and doctors didn't know why. And it was awful. There were women who were having numerous miscarriages, and babies were being born with brain damage. Researchers discovered anti-D, and then James was discovered to have this antibody in his blood, which was amazing.
It's called rhesus disease, a condition where a pregnant woman's blood actually starts attacking her unborn baby's blood cells. In the worst case, it can result in brain damage or death for the babies.
Australia was one of the first countries to discover a blood donor with this antibody, so it was quite revolutionary at the time. James has effectively helped babies in Australia, but he's helped, babies all around the world.
James worked with doctors to develop a vaccine using the antibodies in his blood, a vaccine his own daughter even ended up needing.
That resulted in my second grandson being born hale and healthy, and it makes you feel good yourself, and that you've saved a life there, and you saved many more, and that's great. Well, today I'll be making my 1,101 donation.
As he's done more than 1,000 times before, James gets in his car and heads to donate his plasma. He's a familiar face around here, and no matter how many times he's given blood, there's one thing that will never change.
Never once have I watched a little bit of my own. I can't stand the sight of blood, and I can't stand pain, so...
At the donor center, James's plasma is separated from the red blood cells. He gets those back, and the plasma heads off to become the vaccine.
He comes in every week or two, he donates his plasma, his body remakes the antibodies very quickly, and he's able to donate again. So it's really very easy for him to do, and he certainly doesn't see it as anything big. And that's the other rare thing about James. He thinks his donations are the same as anybody else's. He doesn't think he's remarkable.
His blood is precious. In his home country, James is considered a national hero, but he doesn't see it that way.
It becomes quite humbling when they say, oh, you've done this or you've done that, or you're a hero. No, I said, it's something I can do. It's one of my talents, probably my only talent, is that I can be a blood donor.
But it is a big deal. James and his vaccine are credited with saving the lives of more than 2 million babies. That's according to the Australian Red Cross Blood Service. Yes, 2 million lives saved by one man's blood.
Every batch of anti-D that has ever been made in Australia has come from James's blood, and more than 17% of women in Australia are at risk. So James has helped save a lot of lives.
So this is Samuel, and he's 5 weeks old.
One of those lives is baby Samuel. He's just 5 weeks old, and his mother is here to meet James for the first time.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello, how are you? Well, nice to see you.
Hello.
This is Samuel.
Hello, Samuel.
Christy Pastor first got the vaccine injected during her second pregnancy. With James's antibodies in her blood, little Samuel is her fourth happy and healthy baby.
They just said you needed the vaccine. I didn't think about it any further. And then looking into it a bit more, obviously I found out about James and how amazing he is and how many donations he's made, and that it was all because of him.
Doctors still aren't exactly sure why James has this rare blood type, but they think it might be from the transfusions he received when he was 14 years old, after his lung surgery. He's one of no more than 50 people in Australia known to have the antibodies. That's according to the Australian Red Cross Blood Service.
Yeah, I think James is irreplaceable for us. I think we can't really underestimate what he's done, and I don't think anyone will be able to do what he's done. But certainly we do need people to step into his shoes, and he will have to retire in the next couple of years. And I guess for us the hope is that there will be people who will donate, that will also have this antibody and become lifesavers in the same way that he has.
James is 78 years old. In Australia, you can donate blood until the age of 81. So as long as he can over the next couple of years, you can bank on James showing up here without missing a beat. Another meeting, a world away. As Stuart prepares to make the journey from England to America,
Look at your stick.
2 years ago, he donated stem cells to Celia, a complete stranger in the United States, and they are about to meet for the very first time. Every 2 seconds, someone in the United States needs blood. Most frequently, those transfusions are for elderly patients. In low-income countries, it's just the opposite. 65% of blood transfusions are given to children under the age of 5. 108 million blood donations are collected around the world, crossing borders along the way. It's a lot to keep track of. It's a network almost as impressive as the circulatory system itself. It's a familiar scene, and it happens all over the world. Come to the Blood Donor Center, register, wait, donate, and you're done. But it's what happens next that makes the process of blood donation so incredible. This blood bank is in Copenhagen, Denmark. According to the World Health Organization, of all the countries that report blood donations, Denmark has the highest rate in Europe.
I think it has to do with the culture and tradition. Young people are grown up and taught about the meaning of giving blood. Probably they have parents who are blood donors. We can see that. And we have a strong blood donor association in Denmark as well.
With all that blood, Denmark has spent years perfecting their system. It's complicated, to say the least. The journey of blood starts with the vein of a donor into a bag. That's handed off to a courier who delivers it to the hospital's blood bank. Here, the blood is tested for diseases like HIV and hepatitis. It's also processed through a centrifuge to separate the blood into its different parts.
It's important to separate whole blood into blood components because we only need one component for one patient. In that way, a whole blood unit could support the patient care of 3 patients, 1 plasma, 1 platelet, and 1 red blood cell. And it's important to separate these components because the red cells are going into a fridge, the plasma is going into a freezer, and the platelets are kept at room temperature.
When the call comes in that blood is necessary, it is rushed to the operating room.
It's of utmost importance that we are very close to the operating theaters and to our trauma rooms because sometimes people get a massive hemorrhage and it's all about giving them the right blood components within a few seconds or minutes.
That's where Jacob Stenball comes in. He's an anesthetist specializing in trauma and major hemorrhage. Today, his team is performing a spinal operation. The blood is on hand in case of major bleeding.
The body is actually capable of adapting to very much, but normally after you lose approximately 30 or 40% of whole blood volume, you will get in a condition called shock. That is decreasing blood pressure, lack of oxygen to the brain and so on. This is a very life-threatening condition.
There's rare blood here as well. And if the blood bank doesn't have what a patient needs, that's when the real investigative work begins.
Then we have 2 or 3 donors in our core of approximately 50,000 donors. By intelligently collecting, storing, freezing the blood from those few donors, we can secure a repository of these very rare blood groups. And we have a frozen repository here so that we can always find the blood.
One stranger saving another. It's what happened in Celia Hutchinson's case. In Boston, she and her husband Walter are back at Massachusetts General Hospital for a checkup. Dr. Chen performed Celia's stem cell transplant 2 years ago.
Hey guys.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, thank you. Yourself?
Walter, Celia, great to see you.
Same here.
Take some deep breaths.
Celia has been cancer-free for the past 2 years. The transplant did its job, and Celia credits her donor, Stuart, with saving her life.
I hear from my donor almost every day.
Do you really?
Yeah?
Do you guys email every day?
Yeah, just about, yeah.
Everyone, including Dr. Chen, knows that Stuart is actually down the hall from the exam room. Everyone except Celia. He's come from England to surprise her. We tell Celia we want to get some shots of her and Walter in the hospital's healing garden, that the growing crowd of hospital staff just want to see her being filmed. It's an easy sell, and Celia has no idea what's about to happen.
Hello, who this is?
Oh my God! No! Oh!
But we weren't expecting that, were we?
No, I wasn't. I just texted you this morning.
I know, I didn't reply.
No, I know you didn't. How'd you get? I know you came by plane, but oh, it's fantastic. You know about this?
Yes, I did. And I tried so hard to not tell you for the last 3 weeks.
You're in trouble.
No.
Some tears, lots of smiles and laughter. A match that turns strangers into friends, then family.
Well, she's part of our family, and I think we are of hers as well. I get that impression. I think I've heard that from her daughter, said that in a message to me. So that's quite nice. We don't have the biggest family anyway, so it's it's nice to have more people that you can count are a part of that.
I mean, I have his DNA. I have his blood. We're like brother and sister, really, when you really think about it. Yeah, when you really think about it. So, I mean, it was just remarkable.
Is it more quieter for you at night, or?
Is it quieter? Well, all the kids have gone and a lot of the teachers have, yeah, so.
He saved my wife's life. I know he didn't even feel like he did anything important. And sorry. I hope he realizes now what he did for us. He was my hero.
Whether it's blood, bone marrow, stem cells, or even organs, donating is a selfless act. A few minutes of time donating blood can mean a lifetime for someone in need. You never know who you might save or the difference you can make. For Vital Signs, I'm Dr. Sanjay Gupta.